Hello, my name is Grian, and today we're going to be making what you see here, a pretty formidable looking bunker with a bunch of interior and some secrets hidden within. So let's get straight into it, shall we? The first thing that we need to do is find a suitable location. I've chosen this rather barren tundra mountainous area as I feel like it works quite well. A bunker perhaps doesn't work in a forest. The first thing that we need to do is lay the foundations. Pretty much the same as every build that I do, we need to make the shape on the floor. So I'm going for a very ovular shape, and it's 10, 2, 1, 2, 5, 2, 1, 2, 10, and it goes round in a oval. So those are the dimensions if you need them. Very, very easy to follow from this point. You may also notice that I've made two lines jutting out at right angles, but not in the exact middle of our build. It covers quite a large corner. It's very important for later on, although you don't have to do it right at this stage. Next is pretty easy. We then need to build up our oval pretty high, about 4 or 5 blocks, and then we want to leave a gap and then build it up even more 2 blocks further. That way we've got our little viewing hole that wraps all the way round. Once we've done that, we can then start curving over the ceiling of our bunker. Now it's actually fairly easy to do. You need to just wrap around a block on the inside of the previous layer, making sure that you leave a block. There's no direct diagonals, so there's always a bit of space. Should be fairly easy to follow. Once you've done that, we've actually got most of it, but it hasn't got the shape that we want. It's not quite as curved on the top of it, and it's a lot easier to add the shape after we've got the basic structure. So once you've filled in all this roof, we're layering just a few blocks short of the end of the walls for every single face of the oval. It's fairly simple to do, and it adds a lot of the shape that it's lacking, but it's still not quite there. And after connecting our two pieces with some cobblestone wall in some select places, I then take some stone brick slab, which is the closest to stone we can get, and place them in all of the right angles that we made on the roof that isn't the actual end itself. So as you can see, it nestles itself in every single corner, and that helps make that curve more gradual and less hardline. So the next thing that we're going to do is add texture to this build. We haven't got any depth, it's part of the style, so I've added some polished andesite underneath the cobblestone walls to make it look like it's a supported structure. And then I'm going to add plenty of normal andesite inside the stone itself, and it just adds a lot to the build itself. It makes it appear more detailed, even though the structure has not changed at all. And then once I've done that, it's time to add some black stained glass all the way around that viewing area so that we can complete this first structure. So fairly simple. We're now going to do something very similar, but on a much larger scale and using a different shape. We're going to create a larger scale bunker behind this, but it's also going to be connected. Remember those two lines that we made when we made the oval? That is what is extending out now to become a larger rectangle, but as you can see, if you take note of the corners, it's not a right angled corner. There is one block diagonal space just to try and curve off those edges. So it's not an oval like the first one, but it is a square with some rounded edges. So, to do the interior first so that we can see it from a top-down view, we are removing all of the dirt and stone and all of the other junk that is inside our bunker. So this is going to be where the actual base is going to be. But obviously we don't want any of the diorite or dirt or grass inside our walls or floor. So we're removing that and replacing it with stone for the time being. Although we will replace that with a bit of andesite later on. What I'm going to show you now is just an idea for some inspiration for this huge interior that we have to fill. What I've made is a large, smooth arch that makes its way not exactly the same as the corner of the ovular bunker that we've made, but kind of mimicking it in a way. and then leaving a gap in between that and extending it all the way to the roof. So hopefully this will make sense in a little bit. It's fairly easy to put together, but it's going to have a pretty nice effect. So I've added some more polished andesite as the supports and filled in that space with some black glass panes. So as you can see now, we've got two halves to our bunker. This large room, even though it doesn't have a ceiling yet, we've got the larger hall, which is more for aesthetic purposes, and we've got these areas here for some storage and beds and utility and that kind of thing. We've also mixed in some andesite into the stone, just like we did before, to give that mixed texture. So now that we've got the interior structure laid out, we can actually start putting on the roof. It's going to be fairly similar in technique to the first ovular one that we did. We're going to put down a flooring first of all, and we'll make sure that we take care of the staircases and stuff later. Raise that wall up just one more block and add again some cobblestone walls to create a little viewing platform that goes all the way round our bunker. You get a nice uninterrupted 360 view of the horrible mountains around you. And then exactly the same as we did before, we're wrapping round layers of stone about 4 high and then flattening it off at the top. But of course we have the same problem with this as we did our first ovular shape. It doesn't quite have the curvature that we want, so we're adding some more layers of stone on the front to try and create a more gradual curve for the top of this bunker, and also adding plenty of stone brick slabs nestled in between each of the layers, again to create a more smooth top for this building. And then of course adding some more andesite in, mixed in with the stone for the texture, and finally adding in that layer of black glass panes to finish off the front of it. So as you can see, things are really starting to come together now. We've got the two main structures completely finished. All it's missing is a bit of details. However, a build like this would not be complete without an alternate entrance. So instead of just having a door on the side, which we still have, we're creating this sort of Mario-like tube which you can enter in from up here in the mountains and then go down a ladder, go underground and all the way into the bunker. It doesn't really serve a functional purpose, but it is more realistic in a bunker type sense. So we've got a very simple cylinder here with a roof on the top and an iron door, so you can go in there and then go straight down and into the bunker. It's just a really nice sort of extra detail that will tie this build in together. Speaking of details, that's the last thing that we need to do to this exterior to complete it and integrate this building into its surroundings. So there's a bunch of very cool techniques that we can do to make this happen. The first thing is alternating a stone brick slab between a full block and a half slab all the way around the build, just to give it that extra layer of depth that it lacks in the walls. Except for this other half here, which we're going to do something slightly different with. We're going to be building up a bunch of cobblestone and adding a couple of support structures. So all it is a column of stone brick, and it slightly goes out with a staircase on top, and then a bunch of cobblestone spammed all the way at the bottom, and it looks like a man-made cliff. You have to really try and make it look rough with some cobblestone walls and plenty of slabs, not having any of them at the same Y coordinate. Really try and rough it up. And then on the other side here, we're going to do something very similar to what we just did with a couple of support structures and some cobblestone man-made structures there as well. The next thing we can do, because it still doesn't look completely finished, is add some rocks and boulders and a bunch of leaves as well. Some man-made vegetation and some unnatural rocks will make this bunker start to feel a lot more at home in its surroundings. Making a rock is pretty easy. It's just some stone, andesite, and some cobblestone walls on the top, plenty of leaves, and maybe even some buttons around it to look like smaller rocks or pebbles. So that's the exterior of the bunker complete, and it looks pretty cool. But there's actually some more that we can do here. Underground, we can have a whole bunch of secret rooms, because that's what fits in with a bunker, really. So what we're going to do is carve out an area, and I've taken out a whole chunk of the world so that you can see this in the replay mod rather than in first person, and what you're about to see is a pretty poor looking farm. This is just a proof of concept. It's not intended to look good or be that functional. I'll be honest with you, I'm no expert on making these massive mass-producing farms. So what I've made is just a quick proof of concept for this bunker. I've got a bunch of underground wheat and it's connected to the overground just by a simple ladder. But overall, you can see the potential of a build like this, and how it's stylized is the most important thing. It is entirely grey. It is reminiscent of a World War II bunker. It is attractive in a weird way. So, I hope you've enjoyed this, but let's take a look on the inside, because we've got a bunch of interior traits to look at. So, if you recall, this was our main hall when we decided that we were going to make the interior while it was still open. So we've got some lights that are hanging down, very industrial style, very militaristic, but we've also got some potted plants to kind of soften it up. We've obviously kept the texture on the inside and the outside. Here's the little corner of our ovular bunker, and on the inside of here we haven't actually done too much detailing, but you can get around by a bunch of ladders, and this is sort of a hub area here where we can go anywhere we like. So there's a few places. Down here is our farm, which is, you know, not particularly well made, but you get the idea. You can have a massive mass-producing crop field underneath your bunker and never need to go outside. And then over here is actually where we have our alternate entrance to the bunker. So it's quite a long tunnel, and you can see that it's been decorated on either side, and it's even got a wooden floor. And if you go all the way to the top, you end up at our secret little entrance up on the mountain, which obviously is not that secret. It's just, you know, part of the design of this build. You could make it a secret entrance if you wanted to. You could have no door at all on the actual structure itself. This is all proof of concept and design. Up here we've got some bed areas, we've got the sleeping quarters and a little bit of storage. And then upstairs we've got just a blank viewing platform. You could put loads of things up here, utility, whatever you want. There's quite a lot of floor space on this bunker design, and one of the great things about this is you can really go mad with how big you want this to be, or what shapes you want the bunker to have in general. There's quite a lot of flexibility, as with a lot of my builds, for some imagination to come in here, because I've taught you the main techniques about the texturing, about how to shape the roof, and how to connect it up, and maybe even some ideas for the interior, and then once that's all done, integrating it into the terrain around it afterwards with some rocks and some man-made terrain and some support structures. So I'd love to see what you come up with using these techniques, or if you decided to make this, that's also absolutely fine. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye!